Good afternoon. I'm sorry for technical difficulties that delayed the start of this meeting. It is Tuesday, April 13th, 2021. This is a virtual special meeting of the Commissioners of the City of Rehoboth Beach. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 3:02 p.m. With that, I want to start with the roll call. Commissioner Susan Gay.
Here.
Commissioner Richard Byrne.
Here.
Commissioner Patrick Gossett.
Here.
Commissioner Pat Caluzzi.
Here.
Commissioner Ed Chernowski.
Good afternoon. Here.
Commissioner Jay Legree.
Here.
And I'm Mayor Stan Mills. We have a full complement of the mayor and commissioners. We are able to formally conduct business today. Thank you all for being here. I'd also like to recognize in the room with me City Manager Sharon Lynn, City Solicitor Glenn Mandalis, Chief of Police Keith Banks, Public Works Director Kevin Williams, Howard Rothstein of Building and Licensing, and Evan Miller, Project Coordinator, and Max Hamby, Head of the IT Department. It takes a lot of people to run these meetings, and I want to thank them for all they do for us and for participating with us as well. With that, I want to welcome everybody that's watching this virtual meeting. And thank the participants that registered to talk. Those two that have registered to talk are Carol Everhart of the Rehoboth Beach Dewey Beach Chamber of Commerce, and also citizen Walter Brittingham. Those two are signed up. I'd also like to remind everybody that our support documents, our documents that support our agenda topics, are available online, embedded into the agenda. So go to www.cityofrehoboth.com, seek out the legislative portal, seek out the meeting date and type, and voila, you should find our meeting information. There was no correspondence identified for this meeting. With that, we'll go to the purpose of the special meeting is twofold. One is to discuss bid results advertised and opened on April 8th, 2021 for residential recycling collection and disposal services. And the other part of the meeting is, and the large part of the meeting is a focus on the pandemic and the state and our response. With that, we'll start off with going to the city manager for a discussion of bid results advertised for residential recycling collection and disposal services.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Commissioners. The current contract for residential recycling collection and disposal is with Blue Hen Disposal, and that terminates at the end of this month, April 30th. The city advertised for recycling services, and received one bid on the due date last week, April 8th, from Blue Hen Disposal. The monthly service charge for the 3 years of the contract duration commencing on May 1st, 2021, and ending on April 30th, 2024, are at $3.20 per container, $3.50 per container, and $3.70 per container, representing an 88% increase in the first year. Collections will continue and be weekly, every Friday from the first Friday in May through the last Friday in September. Collections will be every other week for the period of the first Friday of October through the last Friday in April, and these schedules will be posted on the city website. When we first talked to Blue Hen Disposal, they had requested a $2 per container increase, and we did go out to bid. They came back, and their $2 per container increase would actually hit on the third year of this contract, which is the $3.70 per container charge. So we are saving some money by for the first 2 years. There's some possible reasons for this. I think the Director of Public Works can maybe explain some of that. What we're looking at starting in July for potential contamination charges that Blue Hen is concerned with, and certainly the city.
Yes, they are. In fact, Delaware Solid Waste Authority is going to start to implement a additional fee for carriers that have what they call contaminated, they determine to be contaminated loads of recycled material that comes in. Right now, there's not an additional fee. It just, I think they kick it over to the non-recyclable part and just dump it. But they are going to start issuing a contamination fee associated with contaminated loads. So it's kind of unclear now how they're going to implement that and how they're going to bill that. So I think there was some additional risk that Blue Hen is attempting to mitigate that risk a little bit by having, increased the prices considerably from the current year.
I have a question.
Yeah, I do too.
Commissioner Calusi?
Yes, thank you. So Kevin, whoops, I lost something. Hold on. What the increased, because they're now dumping it, it's more expensive. Is there some sort of tipping fee? Is that why the additional charge?
I'm sure that's part of it, right? Because it's a little unclear yet how Solid Waste Authority is going to do that. Because they've told us that the first 6 months is going to be a grace period, so they're going to inspect all the loads or audit the loads coming in. They'll then determine what your average contaminated load rate is. And so they're kind of developing how they're actually going to implement the fee. They've just told us so far that they're planning to implement a fee without the kind of the procedures behind it. So I'm confident that led to part of the increase, if not all the increase from Blue Hen's proposal for the upcoming year.
So if there is some way, and I'm not sure that there necessarily is, but if there's some way for us to mitigate the number of loads or a contaminated load by education of our residents, could we look at for the next year? I mean, somehow, if things are better from our end, I don't think we should be paying the price. Is there some way to renegotiate after the first year?
Yeah, I don't really think they'll go for that. They actually want a 2-year extension, or they included a 2-year extension like they did in this current contract, and we adhere to that. But you'll notice nobody else bid on this, so
right.
we are in somewhat of a bind.